In the kingdom of Blackthorn, where wolves and men lived under one crown, there was a girl named Elira Voss. She was 22 years old, quiet, and used to being invisible. Her father had once been a beta, a trusted officer of the pack, but he had died in disgrace years ago, accused of a crime he always denied. After his death, no one wanted anything to do with his daughter. The pack elders whispered that a curse followed her family, and that any alpha who chose her as a mate would bring ruin upon his people. Elira had heard this story so many times that she almost believed it herself. She lived in a small house near the edge of the territory, far from the grand halls where the noble families gathered. She worked as a seamstress, mending cloaks and gowns for wolves who barely looked at her. She kept her head down, her voice soft, and her heart guarded. She had learned long ago that hope was a dangerous thing for someone like her. It only led to disappointment. The kingdom of Blackthorn was ruled by Alpha King Kaelin Draven, a man known across every pack for his strength and his silence. He was the most powerful wolf born in 100 years, but he had never bonded with anyone. Every year, the council held a ceremony called the Unity Rite, where noble daughters from each pack gathered, so that the king's wolf might choose a mate among them by scent. And every year, for 5 years in a row, the king's wolf had turned away from all of them. Some began to whisper that the king himself was cursed, unable to find a true mate, doomed to rule alone forever. This year, the ceremony was to be held in the grand hall of Blackthorn Castle. Elira had no reason to attend. She was not noble. She was not important. But the head seamstress had fallen ill, and someone was needed to help the noble Lunas prepare their gowns before the event. Elira was sent in her place, carrying pins and thread, moving quietly among women who would never remember her name. The hall was filled with candlelight and music. Wolves of every pack stood in their finest clothes, watching as the noble daughters were presented one by one before the king. Elira stood near the back wall, half hidden behind a curtain, only there to fix a torn hem if needed. She watched Kaelin Draven from a distance for the first time. He was tall, with dark hair and calm gray eyes that seemed to carry the weight of the entire kingdom. He did not smile. He simply watched, waiting, as he had waited every year before. One by one, the noble daughters approached him. One by one, his wolf remained still, showing no sign of recognition. The tension in the hall grew heavier with each failed attempt. The elders exchanged worried glances. Somewhere behind Elira, an old woman whispered that the king's line might end with him, that the crown itself might be doomed. Then something strange happened. Kaelin's eyes lifted from the noble daughter in front of him and moved across the room, past the crowd, past the candlelight, until they landed on Elira, standing quietly by the curtain. For a moment, she thought she had imagined it. But then his wolf, the powerful spirit bound to his soul, surged forward inside him, with a force he could not control. His breath caught, his hands trembled at his sides. Every wolf in the room could sense it, that sudden pull, that ancient recognition that could not be denied. Kaelin stepped down from the platform, walking straight past the stunned noble daughters, past the elders, past everyone who had gathered to see him choose a bride. He walked until he stood before Elira, who could only stare up at him in shock and fear. The entire hall fell into silence. No one moved. No one breathed. "I know you," Kaelin said quietly, though his voice carried through the still room. "My wolf knows you." Elira shook her head, stepping back. "There must be a mistake, my lord. I am no one. I am not meant to be here." But his wolf would not be denied. Kaelin knelt before her, an act no Alpha King had ever done in the history of Blackthorn, and the whole hall gasped as one. It was undeniable. The bond had chosen, and it had chosen the girl everyone called cursed. Chaos followed almost immediately. The Council of Elders demanded an explanation. Whispers of the old curse spread through the hall like wildfire. Some nobles shouted that the bond must be false, a trick, a mistake that needed to be corrected before it destroyed the kingdom. Elira wanted to disappear. She wanted to run from the hall and never return. She had spent her whole life being told she was cursed, and now, in front of everyone, it seemed the curse had reached out and touched the one man who ruled them all. That night, Kaelin refused to let her go. He found her outside the castle walls, sitting alone beneath a large oak tree, tears in her eyes. "You should not have chosen me," she whispered when he approached. "Everyone will hate you for this. They already hate me." Kaelin sat down beside her, not as a king, but simply as a man. "My wolf has never responded to anyone in 5 years," he said. "Not once. Not to any noble daughter. Not to anyone the council presented. Tonight, it recognized you the moment you walked into that hall. Do you understand what that means? It means you are not cursed. It means you are exactly who my wolf has been waiting for." "They say my family brought ruin," Elira said softly. "They say it is why my father died in disgrace." "Then we will find out the truth," Kaelin said, his voice firm. "I do not believe in curses, Elira. I believe in truth, and I intend to find it." In the days that followed, the council grew more desperate to separate them. Rumors were spread that Elira had used dark magic to trick the king's wolf. A rival pack, led by an ambitious alpha named Draven's cousin, Roland Ashgrove, saw an opportunity to weaken the throne. Roland had long wanted more power for his own pack, and a scandal involving the king's mate was the perfect chance to create division. He hired men to forge documents claiming Elira's father had once conspired against the crown, hoping this would be enough to force Kaelin to reject her publicly. Elira, worn down by years of being an outsider, began to believe that perhaps she truly was bringing trouble upon Kaelin. She went to him one evening and offered to release him from the bond, to disappear quietly and let him choose someone the kingdom would accept without question. Kaelin refused before she could even finish speaking. "A wolf's bond does not lie," he said. "If the kingdom cannot accept the truth my wolf has already shown me, then the kingdom is wrong, not you. I will not let fear and old lies decide my future, or yours." Rather than push her away, the danger only made Kaelin more determined to uncover the truth. He assigned his most trusted guard, a loyal wolf named Baron, to investigate the old records concerning Elira's family. Elira herself remembered little about her father's past, only that he had always insisted he was innocent, even as he was stripped of his rank and cast out in shame. Baron's search led them to an old chamber beneath the castle archives, where records from decades past were kept, mostly forgotten by time. There, hidden among dusty scrolls, they found the truth. Elira's family had not brought a curse upon the kingdom at all. In fact, her bloodline traced directly back to Blackthorn's very first Luna, a woman whose descendants had been feared by a group of ambitious elders generations ago. Those elders, worried that a rival bloodline might one day challenge their influence over the throne, had fabricated the story of a curse to keep Elira's family disgraced and powerless. Her father had been falsely accused to silence any claim her family might one day have to the higher ranks of the pack. Elira sat in stunned silence as she read the old documents with her own eyes. Her father had been innocent all along. Her family had never been cursed. They had been silenced. When the truth came to light, Kaelin called for an emergency gathering of the full council, along with representatives from every allied pack in the kingdom. Roland Ashgrove, sensing the danger to his own plans, tried to interrupt the proceedings, insisting the documents were forged by Elira herself to gain favor with the king. But Baron presented witnesses, old scribes who remembered the original cover-up, and the seal of the Elder Council from decades past, proving without doubt that the records were genuine. Elira stood before the entire hall, the same hall where she had once stood hidden behind a curtain, unseen and unwanted. This time, she did not hide. She spoke clearly, her voice steady, despite years of being told she did not deserve to be heard. "For as long as I can remember, I was told I was cursed," she said. "I was told my family brought shame to this kingdom. I believed it, because everyone around me believed it too. But the truth was hidden by men who feared what my bloodline represented. My father did not disgrace this pack. He was silenced because he stood too close to the truth." She looked toward Kaelin, who watched her with quiet pride. "I am not cursed. I never was. I am simply the descendant of the very woman this kingdom's first Luna line began with, and I will no longer let fear decide who I am." The hall was silent for a long moment. Then, one by one, the allied alphas who had gathered began to nod in agreement, moved by both the evidence and her courage. Roland Ashgrove, exposed and humiliated, was stripped of his standing within the council for his role in spreading false accusations and attempting to manipulate the throne for his own gain. Kaelin stepped forward and took Alira's hand in front of everyone. "My wolf chose her the moment she walked into this hall," he said, his voice carrying across the silent crowd. "It did not choose a curse. It chose the truth. It chose the woman meant to stand beside me, not because of her bloodline alone, but because of who she is. I name Alira Voss as Luna of Blackthorn, not out of duty, but because there is no one else my heart, or my wolf, will ever recognize." The crowd, once filled with fear and doubt, erupted into quiet approval, then into full applause. The old whispers of a curse faded, replaced by a new story, one that would be told for generations. It was the story of a girl who had been cast aside, who had been told she was worthless, and who had turned out to be the very thing the kingdom had been searching for all along. Proof that truth always finds its way to the light. In the months that followed, Alira settled into her place beside Kaelin, not as a frightened outsider, but as a Luna respected by the Pax who had once feared her. She used her new position to help others who had been wrongly judged or forgotten, remembering too well what it felt like to be dismissed without a chance to speak. Kaelin, for his part, never once regretted the moment his wolf broke every expectation and walked straight to the girl hidden behind the curtain. Years later, when younger wolves in the kingdom heard the old tale of the cursed Luna, they would learn that it was never a story about a curse at all. It was a story about how easily fear can create lies, and how one person's quiet strength can bring those lies crashing down. Alira Voss, once shunned and forgotten, became the most beloved Luna in Blackthorn's history, remembered not for the curse others tried to place upon her, but for the truth she carried all along, and the king whose wolf had never once been wrong.